Hello everyone, viewers. We think we know the story of Nikola Tesla, the genius, the visionary, the man who dreamed of free energy for all, only to be crushed by the titans of industry. A tragic figure, a brilliant mind lost to the pragmatism of a greedy world. That's the story they tell you in textbooks. That's the safe version, but it is a lie, a carefully constructed narrative to hide a terrifying truth. It is about a man who reached into the fabric of the cosmos and pulled back a power so immense, so world-altering, that it sent a cold shock of fear through the hearts of the most powerful men on the planet. They didn't just outsmart him. They didn't just bankrupt him. They erased him. They buried his work under a mountain of secrecy, because what he discovered wasn't just a threat to their fortunes. It was a threat to their control over reality itself. This is the real reason Nikola Tesla's legacy was locked away in a vault. He wasn't just a man ahead of his time. He was a man who saw a future they would do anything to prevent. The story begins not in a laboratory, but in a flash of lightning. A storm raging over a small village in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. A child is born at the stroke of midnight, as the sky tears itself apart. This child will be a child of darkness, she says. But his mother, a woman of sharp intellect and intuition, looks at the storm and smiles. No, she replies, he will be a child of light. And perhaps he was both. From his earliest days, Nikola Tesla was different. He didn't see the world like other children. He spoke of blinding flashes of light that would engulf his vision. He wasn't sketching ideas, he was transcribing visions. He could build, test and dismantle complex machines entirely within his own mind, running them for weeks on end, checking for wear and tear, perfecting them without ever touching a single tool. This wasn't just intelligence, it was something else. A direct line to the source code of the universe. He was a synesthete. He heard thunder in colors and saw. It was a living, breathing symphony of frequencies and vibrations. And he, Nikola Tesla, was born with the ability to hear the music. This profound understanding set him on a collision course with the man who represented the very opposite worldview, Thomas Edison. Edison was the master of the material world, a brute force inventor. His method was famously 1,000 failures to find one success. He dealt in wires, filaments, and dynamos. He dealt in what he could hold, what he could patent, and what he could put a meter on when Tesla arrived in America with a letter of introduction to Edison calling him a genius. The clash was inevitable. It was the meeting of two different species of mind. Edison saw Tesla's visions of alternating current, of power that could travel hundreds of miles. But when Tesla effortlessly fixed Edison's own failing dynamos, a task that had stumped Edison's entire team, the great inventor saw something else. He saw a threat. The war of the currents wasn't just about technology, it was a holy war for the soul of the 20th century. Edison, backed by the immense capital of men like J.P. Morgan, represented the old guard centralized power. His direct current was weak, inefficient, and required a power station on every other city block. But it was controllable. It was profitable. Tesla's alternating current was elegant, powerful, almost alive. It was a vision of a decentralized world, of power flowing like a river across continents, available to everyone. It was a promise of liberation. Edison knew he couldn't compete on merit. So he competed. He paid school children to capture stray dogs and cats, so he could electrocute them on public stages with Tesla's AC, branding it the current of death. He even helped develop the electric chair, ensuring the first man to die in it would be killed by a Westinghouse generator running on Tesla's patents. He was trying to taint the dream with the stench of death, but you cannot kill an idea whose time has come. At the 1890s, while Edison's pavilion was a dim, sputtering display, Tesla and Westinghouse turned the fair into a man-made galaxy. 100,000 incandescent bulbs, powered by Tesla's AC generators, blazed to life, bathing the white cities in a light brighter than any city on Earth had ever seen. It was a triumph, a global declaration that the future was AC. Tesla had won. He stood on stage, letting hundreds of thousands of volts of alternating current course harmlessly over his body, holding aloft a glowing light bulb connected to nothing. It looked like magic, but it was science. His science, he should have become the richest, most powerful man in the world. His patents were worth a fortune. But in a move that baffled everyone, Tesla did something unthinkable. George Westinghouse, his investors were threatening to pull out unless he got rid of the ruinously expensive royalty contract with Tesla. He went to Tesla, hat in hand, and explained the situation. He was about to lose everything. Tesla, the man who had been cheated and betrayed by Edison, listened patiently. Then he looked at the contract, the piece of paper that guaranteed him billions, that would have made him a king. And he ripped it to pieces. "The trouble you have been through is not your fault. Here is your contract, and here is my contract. I will tear them to pieces, and you will no longer have any troubles from me." Why was it foolish generosity? Or was it because, to Tesla, money was never the point? The War of the Currents was just the first step. He wasn't interested in lighting up cities. He was interested in lighting up the world, and he was about to embark on a project so audacious he had a secret. While the world was marveling at his light bulbs, Tesla was listening to something else. In his Colorado Springs laboratory, a strange wooden structure bristling with antennas, he built a magnifying transmitter of immense power, a coil that would generate bolts of lightning over 100 feet long. The air for miles around his lab crackled with electricity. Butterflies were seen swirling with blue. He was turning the Earth into a giant conductor. And one night, alone in his lab, he detected something. Rhythmic signals, 3 distinct beats. He knew they weren't terrestrial interference. He believed with every fiber of his being that he had received a message from another world, from Mars. The world called him a lunatic. But Tesla was unshaken. He believed humanity was not alone, and what he truly discovered in the mountains of Colorado was the planet's resonant frequency. He realized the Earth wasn't just a rock. It was a massive spherical bell, and if you knew how to strike it at just the right frequency, you could make it ring. And if you could make it ring, you could transmit power information, anything, to any point on the globe, instantly without wires. It was the ultimate breakthrough. It would render the entire energy no more power lines, no more burning fossil fuels, just clean, limitless energy drawn directly from the planet itself, available to anyone with a simple receiver. It was a vision of utopia, and it was this vision that he took to the most powerful man in America, the banker J.P. Morgan. Morgan was the king of the new industrial age, a man who didn't build things, but owned them. His empire was built. Tesla came to him not with a business plan, but with a prophecy. He spoke of a world wireless system, a network of towers that would link the entire globe. It would transmit telegraph messages, stock quotes, and even images across oceans in an instant. This was the pitch, a global communications network. Morgan, seeing the potential to monopolize global information, agreed. He gave Tesla the equivalent. On Long Island, a colossal structure began to rise from the earth. A 187-foot tower, topped by a 68-foot mushroom-shaped copper dome beneath it. A series of iron pipes were driven 300 feet into the ground, gripping the Earth's crust. It was a temple to a new kind of physics, an antenna designed not just to broadcast, but to connect with the planet itself. The world watched in awe. It was the parlor trick to get the funding. Wardenclyffe's true purpose was infinitely more ambitious. It was designed to be the first power station for the entire world, to pump energy directly into the Earth, turning the planet into a superconductor that could power homes, factories, and even flying machines anywhere on the globe. For free, this was the secret he kept close to his chest. But secrets have a way of getting out, and it was in this meeting that the world we live in today was forged. The exact details of that conversation are lost to history, but the outcome is not. We can imagine Tesla, his eyes blazing with the fever of his vision, finally revealing the true scope of his plan. "Mr. Morgan," he might have said, "this tower is not just for messages. It is a transmitter of power. We will give energy to the world without wires, without." J.P. Morgan, the man who built empires on meters and monopolies, stared at the wild-eyed genius before him. The gears of his vast, calculating mind turned free energy, power for all. An end to scarcity. It sounded like poetry, but Morgan didn't deal in poetry. He dealt in profit. He saw a world where his coal mines were worthless, his oil fields obsolete, his power. It was not a utopia. It was an apocalypse for men like him, and the legend says his response was a single, chilling question that sealed Tesla's fate and set the course for the next 100 years of human history. "Mr. Tesla," Morgan asked, "if anyone can draw power, where do we put the meter?" In that one question, the dream died. Morgan didn't just pull the funding, he systematically poisoned the well. No other investor would touch him, Wardenclyffe. The magnificent tower that promised a new dawn stood silent, a skeleton of a dead dream. Eventually, it was torn down and sold for scrap to pay off Tesla's debts. The official story is that Morgan pulled out because Guglielmo Marconi had just successfully transmitted a single letters across the Atlantic with a much simpler, cheaper device. They say Morgan saw radio as the future. Not Tesla's grand, expensive vision, but this is a distraction. Marconi's device was a crude toy compared to what Tesla was building. Marconi himself admitted his work was built on more than a dozen of Tesla's patents. No, this wasn't a business decision, it was an execution. Morgan and the elite he represented had stared into the future that they chose to keep the world in the dark so they could continue to sell the light. The destruction of Wardenclyffe broke something in Tesla. He had given them the key to a golden age, and they had thrown it away. But he was not defeated. He was enraged. He retreated into himself, but his mind never stopped working. And his inventions became darker, more dangerous. He had tried to give human projects that sounded less like science and more like weapons from mythology. He spoke of a particle beam weapon, the Teleforce, which he claimed could shoot down fleets of 10,000 airplanes from 250 miles away. He called it a peace ray, arguing that it would make war impossible by creating an impenetrable shield around any country. But the military saw it for what it was, the ultimate weapon, the death. He offered it to multiple governments, including the United States, Britain, and Yugoslavia. But he demanded impossible sums, and more importantly, he refused to give up the secret of its construction. He would provide the blueprints only when he was ready. He was playing a dangerous game, trying to control a power that governments would kill to possess. Was it real, or was it the bluff of a desperate man? Their file on him, which would grow to be hundreds of pages long, was filled with frantic memos about his death ray. They watched him, they monitored him, they worried about him selling the secret to enemy powers. The story of Tesla's supposed weapons of mass destruction goes even deeper. And if you want to follow us down this rabbit hole, make sure you are subscribed and hit that like button, because the truth is far stranger than you've been led to believe. The story goes that in his New York lab he built a small, pocket-sized oscillator, a mechanical device that could be tuned to the resonant frequency of any object. He attached it to a steel pillar in the basement of his building. As he adjusted the frequency, the entire building began to shake violently. The windows of buildings for blocks around shattered. The ground trembled. His Tesla, with a hammer, smashed the device just as the police burst in. He had, he claimed, found the resonant frequency of the building, and if he had left the device running for just a few more minutes, the entire structure would have been reduced to dust. He later boasted that, with a large enough oscillator and the right calculations, he could split the Earth in two. A madman's boast, perhaps, but then, in 1908, an explosion with the force of 1,000 Hiroshima bombs flattened over 800 square miles of forest. The official explanation is a meteor or a comet exploding in the atmosphere, but no impact crater was ever found, no significant fragments of a celestial body. On the night of the explosion, and for several nights after, the skies over Europe and Asia glowed so brightly that people could read news. At the time, Tesla was conducting experiments at Wardenclyffe, desperately trying to get it working, trying to show the world what it could do. He spoke of transmitting power through the Earth's crust to the other side of the planet, specifically to an expedition led by Admiral Peary at the North Pole. Tunguska, Siberia, lies almost directly on the Great Circle Path between Long Island, New York. Is it possible that in a desperate last-ditch attempt to prove his theory, he overshot his target? Did he accidentally unleash a terrifying weapon, a bolt of energy that traveled through the planet and erupted in the Siberian wilderness? There is no definitive proof, only whispers, circumstantial evidence. But it feeds into the growing legend of Tesla as a man who wielded godlike power. They were worried about a single man working alone in a hotel room who could potentially hold the entire planet hostage. A man who could cause earthquakes, shoot down armies from across a continent, and black out entire nations. The suppression campaign intensified. His name began to disappear from the history books. His patents were bought up and buried. Marconi was celebrated as the father of radio. Edison, Tesla, the true genius behind it all, was painted as a bizarre eccentric, a footnote in history who fed pigeons in the park. They isolated him. They impoverished him. They waited for him to die. On the 7th of January 1943, in room 3327 of the Hotel New Yorker, the 86-year-old Nikola Tesla died alone. The official cause was coronary thrombosis. Within hours of his body being discovered, the FBI, or more specifically, the Office of Alien Property, was swarming his hotel room. This was highly unusual. Tesla was a naturalized American citizen. The Office of Alien Property had no jurisdiction, but they acted swiftly on direct orders from the highest levels of the government. They opened his safe, which he claimed held the secrets to his greatest inventions. All of it was classified top secret, and disappeared into the black hole of the national security state. Why such a massive operation for the belongings of a supposedly washed-up, penniless inventor? Because they knew who he really was. They knew what he was capable of. They weren't just securing his property, they were seizing weapons. They were desperately searching for the blueprints to the death ray, the earthquake machine, the secrets of wireless to assess the threat, to make sure his knowledge never fell into anyone else's hands. The government brought in a renowned physicist and engineer from MIT to analyze the seized documents. A man they trusted to understand Tesla's work. His name was John G. Trump. Yes, the uncle of the future president, Donald Trump. After 3 days of poring over Tesla's life's work, Professor Trump issued his official. He concluded that Tesla's ideas were mostly speculative and philosophical, with no sound, workable principles. He declared that there was nothing of any value, nothing that could constitute a threat. It was the final, official nail in Tesla's coffin. The government declared the case closed. His work was deemed worthless. His legacy was cemented as that of a brilliant but is it believable that the man who invented the modern world, who single-handedly launched the electrical age, spent the last 40 years of his life producing nothing but speculative nonsense? Or is John G. Trump's report the final piece of the cover? Up the official lie to put the world's curiosity to rest, while in the secret labs of the military-industrial complex, scientists began the long, slow process of reverse. That Tesla, knowing his enemies were closing in, had hidden his most profound and dangerous secrets in one or more trunks, which he entrusted to friends shortly before his death. The missing trunks of Nikola Tesla, it is the holy grail for conspiracy researchers and historians. The idea that his greatest work, the true secrets of resonance, energy, and maybe even things we can't yet comprehend. Think about the technologies that emerged in the decades after Tesla's death and the seizure of his papers. Particle beam weapons, the HARP program which studies the ionosphere with powerful radio waves, scalar energy weapons, over-the-horizon radar. How many of these top-secret military projects were born from the stolen mind of Nikola Tesla? Did they get his death ray to work? Are they using his principles of resonance to manipulate weather patterns? We may never know. The documents that weren't returned to his family remain classified to this day. So what is the truth? Was Tesla a madman whose genius curdled into delusion in his old age? Or was he a true Promethean figure, a man who stole fire from the gods, and was condemned to be torn apart for it every day? But the evidence points to a chilling conclusion. Nikola Tesla didn't fail because he was a bad businessman. He was deliberately and systematically erased because his vision of the future was incompatible with the world of scarcity control and profit that the elites had built and intended to maintain. His crime wasn't failure. His crime was that he was on the verge of succeeding on a scale that would have made kings and presidents irrelevant. He offered humanity the keys to a world without pollution, without poverty, without war, a world where energy, the lifeblood of civilization, was as free as the air we breathe. We rejected that gift, or rather, it was rejected for us. by a handful of powerful men in smoke-filled rooms who decided that their control was more important than our freedom. We are now living in the world they chose for us. A world of his name, once forgotten, is rising again. His visions are being rediscovered by a new generation that is no longer content with the official story. The story of Nikola Tesla is not a tragedy. It is a warning. It is a reminder that true progress is always a threat to the established order, and it is a question that still hangs in the air, crackling with unseen energy. What would our world look like today, and is his most important work still out there, waiting in a dusty, forgotten trunk for someone brave enough to open it? The light he tried to give the world was extinguished, but the spark remains, and it refuses to go out. All right, that is all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give it a like to support us. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.